start, folks. 1, 2, 3.
Hello and welcome to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. This is Conlon,
And this is Nathan.
and once again, as a primer, we are going through network television shows that we don't watch to discover what millions of people watch on a daily basis to see what do they get out of these television shows. We are watching three vague, well, I guess they are police procedural dramas. Mostly CBS. I mean, there's only three, but two of them are CBS, and most of these are like CSI was CBS, NCIS is CBS, The Mentalist was CBS. What else? They're just Hawaii Five-0 is CBS. They're just lousy with police procedurals.
Yes, they found their reality TV procedurals. And then,
Yeah,
of course,
good thing. I much appreciate an average police procedural over any reality TV show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I will not watch those. I mean, I do, but it was like Axemen,
American Chopper.
American Chopper, just because it's like these people, do they genuinely hate each other? And as it turned out, yes. You didn't know. It was like, is this just for the show?
So and like for every Pawn Stars, so we are not immune to the gravity of reality TV shows, but in general we don't acknowledge them as art, so that might be a setup for a later season is trying to find art in reality TV shows.
Well, and you can't forget Forged in Fire, which is
yeah.
reality competition show, but there's not a lot of drama. I mean, there is, I guess, behind the scenes, but not out front. And it's stuff that I like. It's like I will watch people do that because it's cool.
That's almost a separate thing. It's like a competition that they turn into a reality TV show. Well, actually, I guess that's all of them. Because like Survivor is kind of the first one to do that. And technically it was a competition TV show. But what people got into was all the drama. Like
stuff.
Yeah. Because I remember like Top Shot. Like, what would just be a cool competition like American Gladiators, but with real guns. But like half that show was just drama.
Yeah.
And fabricated or not, it was just, that's what they edited into the show. So,
yeah, Forge and Fire, very little drama except like when something goes wrong with a knife and you know this guy's like skilled, but because of the time constraints, it's like, oh, his billet has split and he's got to start over and he's got 45 minutes to produce a knife. But no one's like getting in each other's face. It's pretty even keel. So. Yes, it is technically reality TV.
Yeah.
So tonight, for tonight's show, we watched the second episode of all the first seasons.
Yep.
Of NCIS New Orleans, The Mentalist, and Miami Vice. And I will say, NCIS New Orleans sort of redeemed itself in this one. It was a lot more engaging to me.
Yeah.
Because this one is titled Carrier. And no, it doesn't take place on an aircraft carrier. That's what I initially thought. This one is the bubonic plague reared its ugly head.
We'll read the season 1, episode 2, Carrier. Original air date September 30th, 2014 on CBS on Tuesday. Which I added that in because what day a show is on kind of tells like what kind of show is, which there'll be a surprise later on. We'll explain. Here's the episode description, which I'll just read. NCIS Special Agent Tony DiNozzo assists the New Orleans team when a Navy lieutenant on Liberty dies of the bubonic plague. The team races to locate all additional sailors on Liberty, control a potential outbreak, and determine the source of the highly infectious disease. We have showrunner Gary Glassberg. This episode is also written by Gary Glassberg, Jason I. Kidd, and Sonia Winton. So those two, I think they are one's like a script supervisor and one's kind of like just a script writer. But what I've learned from the audio commentaries for the Battlestar Galactica TV show
Hmm.
that was on Sci-Fi. What's that? Ronald Moore? Is that it?
Yes, Ronald D. Moore, something like that.
Ronald
Yeah.
D. Moore. He has fantastic, like all basically all I know about like television production are from these audio commentary. He has fantastic um, breakdowns of like how a television show is made. Now it might be different how because he is a producer and a writer. It might be different how his productions are run compared to other TV shows. So I'm using this as a general basis for things. He came out of Star Trek, which was crazy. They did 26 episode seasons, and they're expensive shows, and they were what do you call that? Syndicated.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times you have what's called a writer's room, where a TV show will just have a bunch of writers, and they'll kind of go out on and have like they'll just have like a convention where everybody gets together and they start to break down the season, where everybody just puts out ideas, and then they kind of break down like what idea for each episode, and then those ideas for episodes are then split up amongst the writer team. So even though somebody might write an episode, the core idea for the episode might come from somebody else. So every episode is kind of written by the team, but somebody has to get the credit for it because they work in Hollywood and they have, unions and stuff. So people need to get money and get
We'll
credit.
need those Writer Guild credits. Yeah.
So that's base. So sometimes when we list these writers, it's not necessarily like maybe the most genius thing about that episode doesn't need to be given credit to the writer is listed, but we cannot determine that. We cannot that is behind the door stuff. So directed by James Whitmore Jr. Also, an interesting thing I didn't mention last time. This is another thing I learned from Ronald D. Moore. It's very important who directs the very first episode of a TV show, because they kind of set like the mood, the kind of look of the show. Because like directors on TV shows, they're not seen as like directors for movies. They're not like auteurs. They're kind of just like management people. It's like, all right, let's hurry this up. Like they kind of know what they're looking for. But if you direct the first episode of a television series, like the first episode of a television series, basically that director will get paid for every show produced henceforth.
Good deal.
Which means Bob Kent.
Why Ridley Scott directed some episodes of something, and okay.
I like Bobcat Goldthwait is probably swimming in money because basically any comedy television show made, he usually directs the pilot.
Yeah.
Because he is a very good director and prolific amongst TV comedy stuff. So,
Oh yeah.
so back to NCIS. Yeah, directed by Jay. Okay, yeah. Now we get into the analysis of the show, or we just tell it. So it's just they're in a club, and because it's in New Orleans, it's not just like a rock band. It's a brass band on stage, and everybody's rocking out anyways.
Yeah.
Because it's New Orleans. And then there is a sailor on leave, so he's just a dude with kind of a buzz cut in civilian clothes, and he doesn't feel very well. He's kind of woozy. He walks outside. He is hit by a taxi in a very well done stunt, because that looked like that hurt.
Yeah.
And then we cut to the credits. Now, one thing I was going to mention about, because I listened to the episode description, and it kind of takes something away from this episode, but also like if you saw like, next week on NCIS New Orleans, you probably would know this anyways. But it's like a good halfway through the episode that you have no idea it's going to be like a plague episode or a pandemic episode. Like so you kind of, that gets lost, but you have to think about like that was the mystery that's being built to. It's like nobody knows what it is till about halfway through the episode.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, because it's like when I was watching this, like, are they using the bubonic plague? Is this like a metaphor against imperialism, sending our navy to other countries? And the fact that the ship's named the Geronimo is even stranger when you realize who Geronimo was. So that was something I was thinking. That was a thought that ran through my head. And then we referenced Steinbeck and the Grapes of Wrath. Yeah, when the doctor's doing the
Oh yeah,
Steinbeck, and they're doing and Steinbeck's most famous work, if you heard that and we're looking into it, it's about the Jodes, who are basically unwanted surplus people moving around a country that doesn't want them anymore. And so it's like, I don't know, maybe there's something there.
yeah,
It's a because a lot of NCIS New Orleans is about marginalized people that are kind of on the edge. This one didn't have so much of that, but the
yeah.
first one definitely did. And because this guy was like a lieutenant on a destroyer, and everyone's like, he was a great guy. He never did anything wrong. And
Oh yeah, because that's what kind of interesting at first. Like what kind of gets ruined by the episode synopsis is that like they don't immediately think it's a bubonic plague. They think he's murdered,
yeah,
and
they think
somebody
some
did something to him.
like roofied him or something, and it got
Yeah.
out of control. And then they hit the red button. Dr. Wade, the coroner, she hits the red button in a building with a bunch of wooden doors and single pane glass. It's like, well, don't come in the room, but it's like, well, this is all throughout the building. But okay, I get it. It's a set. She identifies it because of the amount of infection in his nose and the yellowing of his irises and stuff. Bubonic plague, by the way, is horrible stuff. I'm not going to synopsize it here. Look it up. It's bad. It's the Black Death. It
Yeah.
reshaped Europe and Asia.
Um,
Let's see how many people. It's really important though. We say 200 million people died of this in the Middle Ages. It is the worst pandemic in human history. There's still about 600 cases a year too.
Yeah, it's still around. I think the most deadly variant is like the rarest. I think there's like 3 variants of it. Because there are still like vermin that like just carry the bubonic plague, and every once in a while, like if you look up the records for like your CDC in your state, it's like somebody got the bubonic plague, and it's like because they got it from like a prairie rat or something like that.
Yeah, it's in the U.S. It's mainly in the West. It doesn't really like in the Midwest. There's not a lot of it. It's been reported,
Yeah,
but the most active recent cases have been Arizona, California, places with ports and desert climates. This stuff really survives it.
yeah,
Places where it gets really cold, not so much, unless it's just like ravaging your city, and you don't have antibiotics, or you're in the Middle Ages and you think, well, if we whip people, the poison will get out of them, and you're just flailing blood everywhere, and it's like, yeah, this spreads it around. So basically, plague, that kind of plague is like it's like the meaning there is helplessness. It's like how do you fight this? I mean, we know about this now. It's interesting.
oh yeah, this
or-
almost a quaint episode where it's like, here's a danger. It's like let's respond accordingly. It's like, oh, how quaint.
yeah. Oh, we're going to quarantine people and close the state. Like no one's going to resist, right? Yeah. Okay. And bubonic plague is way more lethal than coronavirus, but I don't think it's contagious. So,
Well, at least in this episode, and I'm not sure, but they did have a vaccine available.
yeah, they have one available now. It's antibiotics, Cipro, and stuff like that. I think.
Yeah, it's a bacteria, so antibiotics will take care of it. I believe it's a bacteria. Yeah, yeah.
I think it is.
Bacteria are easier to fight because bacteria are made of plant cells, and so there's a part of a plant cell that isn't in animal cells, and if you basically your antibiotic is like a shotgun to that part of the cell, and it'll destroy just that part of the cell and nothing else in the body. So that's why antibiotics are great, because they just kill the thing.
Yeah, they don't like destroy your liver or something on the way.
Where it's like with viruses, that's harder because it's like it looks like your DNA.
It's basically humans. Humans are viruses.
And then parasites are even harder because it's like, oh, how do you kill another living thing inside your living thing?
Yeah. Irradiate the host. It's like, well, downside risks. So yeah, the TV show goes on. There was a first Katrina reference. There was a Katrina reference.
They specifically don't say it. It's just a reference. They say like
2005.
Yep.
Yep.
Wait, no,
So
was it 2000? Yeah. Okay, never mind.
2005. Yeah.
Because that was the thing I was judging in my head. It's like, was that really just 4 years after 9/11? God, Bush sucked.
Oh, yeah. People are on the roof. Help us. Yeah. Good job, President. Yep. So that was first one I've heard. Clearly, I might have missed one, but I did. I'm gonna count.
There is a second one, but it's like, it's basically it's like, yeah, New Orleans knows how to pull together in a crisis, and that's also a Katrina reference, but like vaguely. But
Yeah. Well, just remember to mix our metaphors here. The bubonic plague destroyed most of the large cities in Europe. Mainly, it was fire, because everyone was trying to stop the plague, and 80% of New Orleans was destroyed in Hurricane Katrina, or was underwater at some point at all. But essentially, the city was destroyed as a result of Hurricane Katrina. So it was. I saw they were kind of weaving that together. Like, is this going to be the next thing? And then
here's the thing that's like, they did this in both episodes, and this is like when they're the after he gets hit by the taxi, he dies from the taxi, and she's like, Wade is examining the body, and this happened in the first episode too, where she's just like sitting on a case, like she's not standing, she's just sitting on it. I have no idea what that's about. Like, I don't know, just if CCH founder's like, you know what, I'm just gonna sit for the scene. It's outside, it's hot, fuck this, or if that's something that speaks of her character, because or like, you know, maybe she has like a bum leg or something like that. But she stands in all the other scenes, but here she
yeah,
sits.
I do notice there was a lot of sitting scenes. I think it's going to become something with the character. I don't know.
Yeah.
That or they're filming in New Orleans, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to sit down. This is just humidity wrapped around a sun. What was the other thing? Big Pharma is evil.
Yeah.
Again.
Here's
Would you make this TV show today? It's like, could you do this? Because Big Pharma now, they're our saviors. So
Yeah.
it's like, would you want to send that message? It's worth thinking about.
So like so they have to go out around and gather up all the sailors that are on leave, because this boat is docked at New Orleans, and they're all the sailors on leave. And the thing but the weird thing is, like, they don't like, you know, all the guys are like, you know, their phone was off, it was broken. Like, they don't go like, hey, we found them. It's like, hey, we need to go back. They're like, you're under arrest. It's like, what for? And they point guns at him. Like, they go to that poker game and throw a guy who's potentially infected in the swamp, and like, it's like, and they're pointing guns at people. It's like, nobody should be arrested for anything. You just tell them, like, hey, there's a medical emergency, get the fuck out.
Well, now when they went to find the guy who was the cook at the cafe, now at that point they determined that, like, oh, these brownies or bran muffins have like needle marks in them, like somebody injected something. So that's why they were pointing guns at that guy. Now the guy in the swamp, the sailor, was like, yeah, okay, fine. But the other guy who was going to win all the money was like, yeah, I'm not leaving my money. And they're like, yeah, you are. It's, you know, you don't might not like it, but you are. So there was actually a reason they were pointing guns, because they thought he was like poisoned the ship with this stuff.
Oh yeah.
So that's why it did seem a little over the top. But then I was like, oh yeah, they think somebody went to this lab in South America and got this.
Yeah, because they said that guy, the cook guy, was like, he was practically bankrupt, but they're like, yeah, but he like volunteers. It's like, I guess he's just bad with money.
Yeah. And so then the real bad guy turns out to be the doctor that was on the ship that was helping grieving sailors, which is like, well, that's two different kind of doctors, but okay. Well, you know, you just had to have the bad guy. You wouldn't, because I knew that was going to circle back as soon as they first went on the ship and were talking to the captain, and it's like, oh yeah, this is the doctor. He's helping our sailors that are having problems with the lieutenant being dead. It was like, oh, that character's going to circle back around, and he did.
And they investigated the ship, and that's where we get a crossover character from regular NCIS with Denozo. That's the guy they called the Plague Whisperer or whatever.
Yeah.
Presuming also that NCIS had its own possibly multiple plague episodes.
Yeah, that seems to be this guy got hit with this stuff at some point, and Now, if he goes to scenes involving Navy crime investigations where the bubonic plague is a factor, he gets extra vacation days because he's willing to be exposed to the Black Death.
And then you got Abby from regular NCIS. She's like the hacker chick lab person who like is like goth or whatever.
Yeah.
She makes an appearance on the television. So that I believe, and then we do have a little person from the CDC who comes in to help out, and that was interesting because he spent the whole scene basically trying to not say anything about it.
Yeah, this guy's like obviously wildly uncomfortable with her for which I don't think people would really act that way. It's like, oh, she's a professional. Okay, cool. Come in for the
yeah. Oh, you know what you're doing? I don't give a shit.
Yeah, good.
Do you need a step stool? Like whatever you need.
I'm just going to stay out of your way because the Black Death is here, and I really don't care how tall or short you are. But it was a part of the show. They had to give all the characters something.
Well, I think well, not necessarily complain, but like for the first episode, I say like for New Orleans, that's largely a black population. There seemed to be a lot of white people around, and then all the black people were just gang members, and it's like that didn't look that great. So here you had a lot of different diversity around. Like the captain of the ship was a black woman, so yeah, a lot more diversity this time around. So
yeah, well, this is 2014 too. This was before the social wars really started.
What else?
So yeah,
I call it the greed plague because the guy he's basically the company he works for makes the vaccine, and so he's trying to create a pandemic so that they could get money for it. So
yeah, because his company's going bankrupt as well.
Yeah.
Again, would you make this today? Could you?
Yeah.
It was weirdly foretelling. So NCIS New Orleans kind of redeemed itself this week for me. I wasn't too impressed the first time, but this one I liked more.
You had like even less like character development this time around for the main crew, but you had a more interesting crime to solve. And they did a lot of different things. It's like things kept changing. So it was a more interesting whodunit for this episode compared to the last one where the actual crime they're investigating was like essentially the B plot to the show.
Yeah, and they didn't try to horn a lot of really emotional stuff in.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that the Black Death is now in New Orleans, we've got to be careful. They called it the bubonic plague, but yeah.
And then I have here that the case wraps up kind of quickly. Like they catch the guy, kind of an interesting chase where like it's one of those drawbridges that raise up and then they catch him.
Yeah, great drop. Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem I had with that scene is like, why would you have the majority of your forces
on the other side
across the water when this guy could conceivably punch Scott Bakula, put his car in reverse, and has the bubonic plague in his car. But it was a TV show. So.
They had about 5 minutes left in the show. So.
Yeah, it's like we got about $5,000 to shoot this scene. Hey, you think we can give the weird drawbridge guy some whiskey and he'd rate this for us? Cool.
And then you have this time, instead of just like cooking in the kitchen, Pride is grilling for the team. They're all just hanging out. You have this whole thing with Brody, the whole episode where she's like reading history and they're just like, yeah, we experienced, we'll just tell you the history. And there's a weird thing there. It's because she's essentially a tourist because she's from Detroit.
Yeah.
But also there's I think I wrote down where it's like, why are the agents always hanging out? Why do they have no families of their own? And I don't know if that's just like them slowly introducing characters or if that's like some more deeper meaning thing. Like they're all lonely because of this job and they can only confide in each other because they're the only ones that actually know what's going on.
Well, I know it propels the story along. You don't have to pay a lot of extras to play family members.
Yeah.
To my mind, it's like the last thing in the world I'm going to do, even if there's a corpse involved, is hang out with anyone from work after I don't have to be. Not that I don't like the people.
I mean, although I get
them.
They did say they're safe from the plague, but also you could see them staying away from their family because of the plague thing. It's like, just in case, let's stay away from our families.
Don't you love me anymore, honey? Yes, I do, but the plague of Justinian, remember.
But also there's a thing they do right at the end where it's just they just go right into the next case, so they can't even like put their feet up for a while. It's like, oh, now Marine's dead.
Yep.
And I wonder if that will be the case for next week, or if it's just like that's just showing like the job never stops or something like that.
Yeah, they don't have like they don't hang up the phone like I'm off duty. No, it's always about the job.
There was a thing last week. We were wondering why he was sleeping at the office.
Yeah.
I doubt this is the case, but like in the military, you have to, at least in the Marine Corps, you have what's called duty, where essentially like you are in charge of a building for like 24 hours. Like you're essentially security.
Oh God.
And you keep a logbook, like who walks in and all that stuff. And sometimes like you'll have multiple people on duty, and like there'll be a bed nearby, and like you have sleeping shifts and stuff like that. So I didn't know if like maybe Pride pulled duty, but because this is like a civilian organization, I doubt that. Like they just get like a sailor or a Marine to watch the place.
Yeah, they would dragoon some help in instead of paying overtime. Because you got to pay people for that.
It's like we're investigators. Like why are we doing duty? Like why are we security? Like we're.
Yeah. Well, you never know. So we watched The Mentalist.
Yeah.
And this was you can go ahead and recap the episode because I just have my weird notes.
Season 1 episode. Oh, that's. All right, season 1, episode 2, Red Hair and Silver Tape. So this is actually the first title because the one was just previous was just called Pilot. Original air date September 30th, 2008, CBS Tuesday. Now here's an interesting thing. It's like I guess because it's 6 years apart, the calendar repeats because the NCIS and the Mentalists are on the exact same dates, just 6 years apart.
Okay, weird. What does it mean?
Well, it means that in September, that's when the new show's air.
Oh.
I actually think I think these will separate at some point because I don't know if there's production issues or if like somebody has like we had the Olympics or whatever. I don't. Well, the Olympics don't go on in September, but it seems that one of these shows get sidelined for a bit, so they will probably use this. Yeah.
Yep.
Episode description: the body of Melanie O'Keefe is found at a Napa Valley vineyard. Teresa believes the murder is the result of an argument between lovers. Again, all these descriptions are from Internet Movie Database, so just give it. Showrunner Bruno Heller, written by Bruno Heller and Ken Woodorf, and directed by David Nutter.
All right. David Nutter. Where have I heard that name?
I don't know. I mean, I can look it up.
Yeah. Let's talk about the show.
It says he's known as a director and producer for Game of Thrones.
Okay, that's where I knew it from.
Looks like he's worked on the Pacific too. So, anyways, we'll come back to that. Oh no, I forgot to. Oh no.
What happened? Is that a tone of regret?
Actually, it's a thing like I hit the keyboard and it's like, oh, the keyboard's not on. Let's turn the keyboard on, and then that little the keyboard's connected.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. This episode starts with a black and white description of the Mentalist, a definition for the Mentalist.
Yes, I noticed it was different this time.
So that's new, and it looks like that will continue on.
All right.
So just know everybody knows what a mentalist. Yeah, because maybe people are confused. Oh, it's always like that show, The Alienist.
Yeah.
Where it's like I've seen, actually I never saw the first season, but I saw like some of the second season, and like from the show title, it's like the fuck is that? And I don't think they give a description, but
Oh no, they do.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah, well, I've read the book. Book's great, and I've watched the TV series. TV series great. An alienist is like a 19th century term for what we would call a psychiatrist today.
Oh,
but
okay.
An alienist studies crazy people who are alienated from their true selves. That's why they're called alienists. They don't use those terms anymore because we have different concepts of mental health than we did in the 1890s when that show's set. Because that's when like Freud would have been a young man then, and Jung and all those people. But yeah, has nothing to do with what we're doing. But yeah, it actually is good to explain the term mentalist, because that is a very old term too.
Yeah.
So it's a good, they made a good choice to do that, because people just reading that is like, is he a wizard? Does he have magic powers? Which is exactly the opposite of what the show is trying to do. So yeah, it was. I'm glad they put that in there. I mean, I knew it was in there because I did something crazy like look it up on the computer. What is a mentalist? It's like, oh, it's like kind of like Houdini or more.
Well,
of
like when I was pitching the show, like we should watch The Mentalist. Like you were confused because that didn't give you any description of what the show was.
Am I watching someone like get out of handcuffs in a water tank? What am I seeing here? Or someone doing like card forces on people, and like, I knew you'd choose that card. It's kind of that.
Yeah, he does the. He embarrasses the sheriff by knowing what he'll choose in rock paper scissors.
Yes, and this.
Yeah, because it opens up with like they find a body in not like they don't. It's like in a grave, but it's not buried. Or did they uncover it and she was buried?
No, it's like in a ravine with like pipes and stuff for watering the grapes, and then because this is in the Napa Valley.
Yeah,
be like in more northern California, mid California, and no, those were all the irrigation pipes, and she was just kind of thrown in there because it wasn't visible unless you look down into the pit, but she wasn't buried. She's kind of dusty.
Yeah, I had something about like the look of the show is like the outdoor was very muted, like the colors are very muted. It reminded me of like the last scene in Seven.
Yes.
And I didn't know if like they were going for something.
There's a lot of things in this show that remind me of Seven.
Yeah. I mean, it is an investigative unit that like covers serial killers, so
right. It makes sense.
But it almost gave me like this kind of like Mad Max vibe, like the original Mad Max, where it's like society's still together, but there's kind of a looming essence that anything could fall apart at any moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they are trying to go for that here, but I just added it to it anyways. Like something's wrong with this world.
Well, yeah, because they're not in the steel city of like Los Angeles or in the environs around there, the big suburbs. They're kind of they're in like a desert place.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of poor people who, you know, like the girl that was killed was just kind of a local girl going to, you know, got a scholarship to UCLA for playing softball, which was like the mom and the dad were likable, decent people. And it's like she had her purity ring, and which that's a theme in this too. But it's like she seemed like on the surface to be a decent person. And actually she really was. She just got kind of caught up with one intentionally bad guy and then some other bad people too that were completely crazy. But
I have this is the second time in a row. Oh, not really in a row, but in show wise, that like they're interviewing like the grieving mother and father are grieving, and then he just walks into their house and invades their home.
Yeah.
And looks at pictures and basically starts putting things together. And then he made her brother, which I almost like. They're not gonna make him the killer, right? So I was like weirdly suspecting the kid because he was like seemed to be like not like sort of slightly autistic, like he didn't have emotions, but
yeah, he didn't seem to be in contact with the emotions that you'd think he would be, considering his sister was violently murdered.
Yeah.
Well, or maybe not violently murdered, but murdered nonetheless. And,
yeah,
he seemed like kind of I wondered where that was going to go, but it just became a metaphor for the mentalist's own childhood, Jane's childhood. Don't carry anger with you, and don't regret. Don't make decisions you'll regret, because this kid was going to kill the person he thought was responsible for his sister's death with an axe that he had in a restaurant. This is what I'm going to use. I put that away. It was a little like, oh, okay, this kid's going for it. But that's later on.
And then they think the what was their name? Something O'Keefe. The Melanie. They think that because Patrick Jane sees a picture of her with a woman like at a trip, and so he thinks that like they had a relationship, and then they go to work to interview her, and he basically does a hypnotize trick on her, and it seems
Yeah.
to be total bullcrap at first, but then it works later on. It's like what? But so we're slightly giving him magic powers, but
Well, we're giving him credit for something that really doesn't work,
yeah,
but it works. It's a great mechanism for the show.
yeah.
Because hypnosis, true hypnosis, which doesn't exist or can only be done chemically, like you can give people drugs and make them tell you things, but it's like truth without. It's called truth without volition. It's like you're not choosing to tell the truth; you're being manipulated or in some way, So it's like truth without truth, which is kind of what she did. She did say what was going on and what she suspected and who he was in a relationship with, but she was never emotionally engaged. And they kind of made it seem like it's because she was high all the time. They kind of hinted around that it's like she seems kind of like emotionless and weird. It's like, oh, she's stoned. It's like she's stoned constantly, like just never stops being stoned. But she was sort of in and out. Like I think they established something with the main character that he can do, and then it's like, okay, it's a throwaway after this. It's like, yeah, it works. See,
Well, also they gave him like a like a dilemma, or like this is a punishment for doing this. They give it a potential. It's like, don't do that. Like if somebody finds out you're hypnotizing people, like everything she says will be inadmissible.
doesn't matter even if you formally hypnotized her. It's still inadmissible. I checked it out. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a legal expert, but I looked it up. It's like, no, you can't accept testimony from people that are under duress or influence or something. Yeah, so it wouldn't matter. It's like, yeah, if it leads you to the killer, then you charge the killer with the murder. But, a good lawyer gets you off.
What do I have here? Oh, we have like some Rashomon stuff going on because everyone has their last moments with Melanie, and like they all seem to be slightly different. So that was like kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, that's a challenge for Jane because usually he comes in and he puts everything together right away. But it seems like now people have a different interpretation. We don't know if it's the truth or not.
Yeah, because also like they have a thing where the people are telling the story, but then the flashback is just what actually happened.
Yeah,
and there's inconsistency there. So
yeah, and that's that's the complication of life. Even if you're a super intuitive Sherlock Holmes huckster guy, it's hard to piece it all together because the motivations are so weird, and he doesn't know who's really doing it until they show up. It's because he thinks it's one thing, but then it turns out to be something else.
Yeah, because they immediately blame the boyfriend from the other side of the tracks,
who is a bad person.
Yeah,
but not a killer for no reason.
Yeah,
he's not a sex killer. Like he's a violent, angry person who's in a relationship with this girl and wants her to get away from him. Weirdly enough, it's like, yeah, go to UCLA. There's no future here, because he's like some gang guy named Hector. And it's like, did you ever beat her up? Oh yeah, but she had to know the boundaries, and just like straightforward, like, yeah, of course that you add the you add the spices to the rice after you cook it. Like it was just stated that way. Like, what's everyone looking at me weird for? Yeah, there's blood in my truck from her. Beat the shit out of her because she had to know the boundaries. And it's like, what? Okay. It's like, I hope this guy goes to jail for different things.
Yeah. Why would you admit that?
Doesn't need to be walking around.
I have here they're building some sexual tension between Jane and Lisbon.
Yes, that was always going on. She's
Yeah.
less of the mean boss in this.
Yeah.
She still kind of is. She's like results orientated, but she's not like, I'm just going to push you over because I can't.
She's also like his handler. Like she has to keep, like none of the other guys on the team will get in his way, but she will.
Yeah.
Because the other guys in the team are just fascinated with him. They're like, man, he's always right. And she's like, no, he isn't.
Yeah, the Asian guy likes the way he thinks, and the other guy is just like a dumb football player. It's like, yeah, whatever he says usually works, so I'm going to follow him. And the Asian guy wants to like decipher him. Like, I want to know how to do this. Like, this
yeah, he's trying to learn from
skill.
him.
Yeah. Yeah, I picked up on like the purity ring and the purity pledge in this right away. Is like, oh, this is interesting. This is like a seven deadly sins episode because we
Yeah.
got the purity, the virgin who loses purity because she put her ring in her locker. She's not wearing it anymore, which means she's involved, and then she gets killed. And it's like, oh, I see what happens when you stray from the path. And I mean, we don't exactly have all the seven deadly sins here.
Well, the cook is like gluttony because that's where Patrick Jane picks up on something. That's the only clue he has where they Lisbon tries to like, how'd you know that? And that's his justification. But like, that absolutely is not 100% justification. That's just his guess. He's just good at guessing.
There's a lot of butter in this food. It's like he's like complimenting the chef, like that's your secret, butter, right? As much as you can take, and it's immediately like this guy's Joss Whedon's a gluttonous man. That's not who the actor is, but it looks like him.
Yeah,
it's kind of a fatter version of that. And then his wife's kind of a weird person, and it's like, but they seem like they're just like kind of these assertive people that run a restaurant in the Napa Valley wine country, which is that's where all the rich people from LA go to drink their wine and be sophisticated. It's like so they seem like, and this is where all the characters except the Hector work, is at this restaurant. And the chef is the head chef is definitely not nice to his employees, because he goes and slaps the guy on the head who was hitting on the victim, and he passes out when when Jane's like, yeah, I know he murdered. I'm gonna start saying Thomas Jane. I'm gonna mix this up. But yeah, she. So yeah. Anyway, so we go through all this stuff, and we'll just I'm assuming you watch the episode. In the end, it turns out to be the husband and wife that own the restaurant are just picking up girls and killing them. And
specifically redhead girls, right?
Specifically, yeah, it's because the episode's called what? Red hair and duct tape, red hair and silver tape, or something.
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, these two are
and like buddy. It might be something weird with like the wife because she's also a redhead, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So he's like wants like to kill his wife. Or
redhead. Well, see, the weird thing about them, that's what I picked up on, because we got gluttony and lust. Like those two characters are that. Now, because he's gluttony, I don't know if she's lust or wrath. I'm not sure. Because I don't know what you'd get out of your husband like murdering some other woman in front of you. Well, really, they didn't murder people initially, did they? And they just drug people.
And kind of tie them up. And then it was like, it's when the wife was restraining Melanie that she like basically suffocated her.
Yeah. This wasn't an intentional killing. So they were doing something weird.
But like Tom or Patrick Jane is suggesting that like they're working their way up to killing somebody.
Yeah.
And which is like where he picks up on something, or he finds a hotel and he's like, this is where they're going to kill him next. And like, cause he finds some cleaning supplies and he just waits in the room, which brings up this weird
duct tape and like visqueen sheets that you lay down. It's like, yeah, that's an obvious tell. There's not too many other things you use that stuff for.
Which is a big comedy moment when they bust in the room and like have the body and he's just like sitting on the bed and he's like, oops, I should hide.
Yeah, and he basically like hides against the door as they walk into the bedroom, and you think he's gonna like walk out, but it's like, no, that's too close. They'll see that movement, and they finally see him, and he's like, don't move, in this commanding voice. Don't move. There's, the people are coming. This place is surrounded, and they're like, no, it isn't. It's we know it's not surrounded.
And it's like another moment where like he positions himself to be in the right place, but like he has no way of defending himself.
Yeah, he never has a gun or a knife or anything, because the chef's got like a big chef's knife and the wife's got like a gun.
Yeah,
but she doesn't have the safety turned off on, because Lisbon comes in and shoots them both to death, because the guy's waving a knife around and she's trying to figure out the safety to shoot back at her. And, so it was kind of a weird. It almost seemed like the story hit the brakes halfway through, and then it coasted along, and then this happens, and it like hits the accelerator, and it's like, okay, we're done. This is who did it. And now, the one character that seemed weird in this was when they tried to set up the person they thought was going to abduct their redhead from the restaurant, the undercover cop.
Yeah,
was the sheriff. Like, what's that guy's deal? Again, I don't read in advance, so I don't know. But I'm thinking, well, this guy's gonna come up again.
Yeah.
He's got it somehow, because it's like, oh, he was being weirdly aggressive with her. Like, no, come on, let me give you a ride. And she's like, no, I'm fine, no. And then it's like, hey, you're drunk. You're coming with me. Like, he grabs her, and then the other guy, the cops that are watching their undercover agent, and I can't remember the names. I'm terrible, but yeah, they come out of the car.
Rigsby is the meathead football guy.
Yeah, so they're like pointing guns at the sheriff.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? And it's like, oh, this has got to come back. And there's another reason I think that, because rock, paper, scissors, that's an Asian thing. Rock, paper, scissors is how it got kind of Anglicanized. But that's
Rochambeau.
No, that's something else. The
okay.
rock, paper, scissors is it was like, I forget what it was in China, but it spread out through. But it was always three like things with opposing forces and strengths and weaknesses. That's a form of war without fighting war. It's like a conflict. We're going to have this conflict and solve this problem, but no one's going to get hurt. But we're practicing for, some kind of violence in the future. And that's the kind of the rock, paper, scissors. That is the like metaphor for that in the English language, is like, it's a form of passive war. It means you're going to come into conflict with someone. I could be totally full of shit, but I got a whole season to figure it out.
Yeah, this is the show we give a bit more credit to, just because there's a lot to read into it if you want to. We'll see if it means anything, but yeah.
Right, that's the point. Oh, and also I learned that marriage is a collection of mental illness.
Was that in the show? I can't remember.
No, I just made that up. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Just when the husband and wife, when it ended like that, I was like,
okay.
A collection of crazy people. I mean, not everyone's marriage, but a lot of marriages, if you think about it, can go that way. It's just two people feeding off the worst parts of each other.
Has there ever been like a husband and wife serial killer? Would that be a first?
I'm not off the top of my head. I don't know. I think in the UK there was, like, the husband was the killer, the wife was sort of enabling, I'll help you hide the bodies and shit. I could be wrong on that, but I think there was something like that, because it was very weird. Because it's like serial murder, unique pathology. Usually normal people that aren't also crazy aren't like, yes, let's go on this journey together. They're like, well, what the fuck are you doing? Why do you want to kill these people? To steal their money? But no, what are you doing?
There's also a lot of things in like very bad things that happened in like the 20s and 30s that like now we'd probably categorize as serial killers, but like but it wasn't categorized then. So like there's a lot of people that like, because usually it's like, well, it's usually a white male that is a serial killer. Then like Eileen Warnass was like the first female serial killer, but like there's this one lady. She was just a thief, and this is like in the 20s, and she'd just take on like runaways, and like they'd rob places, and then she'd like kill one of them, and then she'd like help. But it was always like two. She'd get one of them to help her kill the other one. And I'm not sure if it was for a reason, but she killed like thousands of kids. Well, not thousands, like tens of kids, essentially.
Yeah, more than one, so too many.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's stories. What was the guy's name? Panzeram or something like that. There was a serial killer in Germany between the two world wars. And one of the first governments in the world to recognize that there are people that kill just for the pleasure of killing without financial or sexual type things, that they just want to kill. I mean, there's always a sex element, because usually it's a white guy killing women or children, someone weaker than him.
Yeah.
But I know that the Weimar government got really efficient at like, oh, this is a psychotic personality. This kind of killing, there's no money involved. It's not like a prostitute tried to steal my money and someone slaughtered her with a knife. I think it was Ed Panzeram was the guy who did it. And so I know like in the 30s it was kind of seen as fringy stuff, but because the Weimar government, despite the fact that they couldn't run their economy worth of shit, was pretty progressive in letting ideas and stuff like, we can pursue police work this way. We can bring shrinks in and stuff. It's not all just guys with knuckle dusters and beating the hell out of hobos. It's like we can actually do some police work. Then that all got swept away with World War II, and then kind of revisited in the 50s and 60s. But yeah, there was a concept of it of like the thrill murderers. I mean, remember Devil in the White City? Like
Yeah.
that guy was a. They didn't really have the reason he got away with it is like, well, what's he doing? Like, what is this? It's like, well, these people are
Yeah,
being killed.
there'd be no point. Like they wouldn't think of it because there's no point to it. It's like,
Yeah,
why would somebody do that?
yeah. There's no gain in this, but then it's like, oh yeah, people are sick. They are wound weird. Some of them. So, but anyway, so that's the Mentalist for this week.
Oh yeah, and also Patrick Jane is always in the room when people get shot.
Yeah, that seems to be a thing. He's there to witness the violence, and not really
Because he sets it up.
yeah, he set those dominoes up, and he knows where to stand so they don't fall on him. Of course, in this one, I don't know. When she shot the husband, he was standing right behind the husband. But better hope Lisbon's a good shot, and those bullets don't just tunnel through, because you could get some splash. But it's not going to happen because it's a TV show, unless it needs to happen. They'll have some interstitial scene where he'll put like a plate or something under his shirt, and someone he's like, I knew that bullet would go through because of the whatever Jane's magic is. That's what they'll do.
All right, and our final episode, our final show, Miami Vice, season 1, episode 2, Heart of Darkness. Original air date September 28th, 1984. NBC on
10 years
Friday. So the first episode, I went back and looked at this. It premiered on Sunday, but the show was showing on Fridays. I'm not sure if it switches at some point because there's a thing, and I'm not sure, it might have been different now, but Friday is always kind of seen as like the shit slot
Yeah.
for television shows, because Thursday's the big night. Because what Thursday usually is where you sell ad space for the movies that are coming out on Friday, because Friday is date night. That's when you go out and watch movies, you go to dinner, so nobody is at home to watch a television show.
Yeah.
That's the presuming theory. So it's interesting to see that Miami Vice was a Friday show. But we'll see if that moves, because obviously it was a huge show. But
Well, I think some of the stuff with Miami Vice, because I did a little more research on the Miami Vice show, because I'm familiar with it. As soon as I get 10 minutes into one, I'm like, I remember this one. This is what the guy from Married with Children plays Colonel Kurtz from Heart of Darkness. But this a lot of things with Miami Vice is it was an exceptionally violent show for its time for network TV. So
Yeah.
I think we thought 10 o'clock set Friday night was a safe slot for it.
yeah,
Because it's like this is I mean, they didn't know at the time this became the culturally influencing show of the 1980s. So
Yeah.
once it became cool, it's like, yeah, they can machine gun hookers. We don't care. But initially, I think they were trying to play it safe. And Mom and Dad reminded me, I actually had a suit in these colors when I was younger, when I was like 12 or 13. Like I wanted to dress, like these guys. And I forgot how much I was really into this show.
that's way better than what I did as a kid. I got a mullet because of MacGyver.
Yeah.
At least you could look cool.
Well, no, I was a big fat guy in a pastel suit, even as a 12-year-old or whatever. I don't know if it looked cool. People knew what it was because I think they had to look for it to find them in those colors. But that kind of, because what's that called? Electric fuchsia, and there's an actual Miami Vice color palette
Yeah.
that you can go to. Because Nike released, was it the shoes for the Miami Heat? They were done in the Miami Vice palette.
Huh.
Like it was a black shoe, but the Nike swoosh had the two, like the fuchsia and the pink, like embroidered behind it or whatever, and it was like an homage to Miami Vice.
So the episode description we have is investigating a porn baron. Crockett and Tubbs become involved with an undercover FBI agent who may have gone native and become a criminal, and may have murdered an underage porn starlet. Meanwhile, Zito and Switek pose as fences, and Elvis the Crocodile feels unloved.
Yes.
Showrunner Michael Mann. This episode written by Anthony Yurkovic, Daniel Pine, and Joel Surnow.
Yeah.
Directed by John Llewellyn Moxie.
Yeah, this was definitely I know we watched the kind of the pilot. This first episode really establishes the motif in Miami Vice that carries throughout the series. I mean, towards the end, it got really janky. Like in the late '80s, it was like, "Oh, how ridiculous can we make this?" You know, someone's stealing a nuclear bomb. Like, what? These are Vice cops in Miami. I don't know if it ever got that far, but it did get pretty weird.
But I mean, like, first episode, it's about drugs. It's like, obviously, like, Vice is going to be down. Now this is a different Vice. This is about porn.
Yeah, and it opens up to a porn shoot that's actually like for the time and for what they're doing is like, oh, this is kind of a racy scene, and it also
Yeah,
seems
because well, it starts out with just like, okay, you have 80s aerobics, and then you have like an 80s song. It's like, so they continue with that theme. So it's like, okay, we're the 80s. And then it's a very young looking woman. And then it's like a guy locks up the door. Is like, I'm here to service your unit. And then it's like, oh, this is a porn. And
yeah,
like,
this is some kind of show or something. Yeah,
and then like eventually like they show the camera. It's like, okay, yeah, this is a porn. But then there's a part where like the guy's like, it's gonna cost $50. He's like, I don't have that money. And then it just kind of becomes like basically a rape scene.
yeah.
Where it's like,
off me and like, what?
it's like, is that what this guy's like? Is that what their specific deal is? Like, why? What their porn is, how their porn is different, because like in every scene it's just like an amicable thing where it's like, hey, you're happy about this, I'm happy about this, let's do this. Not this like, well, I'm gonna take advantage of you. It's like, I don't want to watch that fucking porn.
Yeah, and then it turns out it's like, oh no, she wasn't acting, she was uncomfortable, but they're feeding her cocaine. And you also find out 16-year-old girl from Kansas, which is revealed later. And Crockett and Tubbs are there pretending to be a couple Jersey porn distributors. They're working the front, and then Zwitek
they need content. They don't have enough content.
And then Zwitek and the other guy are the backup. They're the actual cops. That because Crockett and Tubbs get arrested a lot by cops in this to kind of prove legitimate. But then they walk around crime scenes with police ID badges on in the same city. It's like, I wonder if these guys are cops. But, it's a TV show.
Well, yeah, there's one part I confused because I thought Tubbs was, like, wearing a badge on a necklace because they do that a lot. And there was, like, there's a part where he's like, he's undercover. Why is he wearing his cop badge? And then it was, it was just a medallion. It wasn't a cop badge.
Yeah, they don't, I don't think the around-the-neck cop badges were around then.
Yeah.
I don't know when those came in, but yeah, they're walking around sometimes though with ID badges on, like in plastic lanyards. It says like Metro Dade Investigator. It's like, it's a good undercover. But actually, it's a cool story, and that's all it is. But this, it was fun to see Ed O'Neill, who everyone knows from Married with Children, playing a multiple roles. He's let's see, he's Artie Rollins, and Arthur Rollins is but it turns out he's like a deep cover FBI agent who they don't know if he's like, oh, is he actually into crime or not? Because of course we established right away in this show that the Miami Police Department and the FBI don't get along. They don't like each other.
Yeah, and the FBI are idiots, but the vice cops, they're the smart guys.
Yeah.
They just get paid less to be smarter.
All the guys with like law degrees that went to, the FBI Academy for 3 years, they're a bunch of dumbasses. These vice guys show up and they're like, well, I mean, they would know the city better, but it turns out actually in this show and in this episode, I'm just going to talk about this episode. It actually makes sense. That's like, oh, we don't like the FBI because the FBI was like wildly corrupt and playing their own game here.
Yeah.
But you don't find that out until much later in the episode. So initially it's the typical local cop standing up to the feds routine. But what I like about this is where Miami Vice always usually gets it right is like, oh no, there's a reason for that. It's not just a trope, because the levels of corruption go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you've always got people.
Yeah, they're psychologically damaging this guy to get a better case.
Yeah.
And they just keep pushing him on.
He is the FBI agent.
Yeah.
He wants out. He is a legitimate. He's not some guy they just paid to flip. It's like he has a wife and family. He sells shoes in Chicago. No, he does have a wife and a family, and he wants to get out and he wants to get back to something, and the FBI won't let him out. This is the Ed O'Neill character we're talking about.
And this is supposed to be like a mirror for the Crockett character, who's like, yeah, I've been there. Like, I know what it's like. So that's like the fate of Arthur is supposed to be like Crockett looking at his future. Is like, is that going to happen to me?
Yeah, am I going to get so deep I don't come out? But see, that's where the whole Heart of Darkness theme comes from.
Yeah,
it's like, Kurtz, did he go native? Was he
actually? Yeah, you'll have to go in depth because I just know it from Apocalypse Now and stuff. I've never actually read the Heart of Darkness story and stuff. So
it's cool. If you read Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, you will find all kinds of movies and TV shows that we like that are direct, because the ship they're on is called the Nostromo. Guy that I don't know if he's a colonel, but his name is Kurtz, and he was like a German paramilitary or something. This was back in the 1800s. But I mean, I'm not going to recap Heart of Darkness for everyone. Read it; it's not very long, but you'll find all kinds of references to shit we like come from Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. So, that's as far as the episode goes. I mean, it looked cool. Everyone did a great job.
The only thing I thought was like weird is like all the sound mix. Like, if they weren't playing licensed music and there wasn't any kind of like music, there's just this uncomfortable hum of silence.
Yep.
It just felt like they didn't get the audio right for the show. I'm not sure why.
One of the things with Miami Vice, when I don't know if it was it Littlefield or Trotman, I'm not sure who came up with that, but it was supposed to be MTV Cops, and every episode had $10,000 set aside to buy the rights to licensed music, because they always wanted licensed music playing. Yeah. So sometimes they would play licensed music, and it's like, well, we kind of blew the budget. We got $10,000 for soundtrack. We can only play these songs in certain places because the songs aren't going to constantly be following these guys around on their Ferraris and boats. So there's going to be a lot of silence or just that guitar chord that, because.
And it's also, well, maybe you would know or not, but it's also very possible because these things have been relicensed for streaming. So there could be music that is excised from these episodes.
There could be, but I think when they redid them for streaming, they would put something in there. But maybe they wouldn't. I don't know.
Because that is a huge problem for almost any MTV original show, especially from the 90s when streaming didn't exist, is like the only way to get them the way you want to see them is to pirate them, because they're like because like Daria, like all the music was just taken out, and that one worked better because like what they filled it in with, it was fine, because Daria wasn't necessarily about like listening to 90s music or watching the show, but like
Beavis and Butthead was annihilated.
Yeah, that was fairly essential. Yeah. And then there's a lot of shows where they just use licensed music and then it's just not there anymore. I don't like The State was like a comedy show, a sketch comedy show where a bunch of people came out of there, and like there's no way to watch that unpirated because it was just like I don't think there's any official release from MTV for that, and there's just a lot because it was just never licensed for and like and even if it went to home video and stuff like that, it's like that's separate from streaming. You have to relicense it for streaming because that's just how the world works. So.
Well, you got to remember too, like a lot of these shows were just made to be one and done, disposable. They have you have the syndication rights in perpetuity to all that stuff because you're just rebroadcasting it the same way.
Yes,
so you can play all the Phil Collins shit you want because you bought the rights to that for this presentation. But when these properties started to become hot again because they don't make anything original anymore, it's like really hard. Because I heard like the rights on some of the Miami Vice stuff just lapsed. Like this is like, yeah, it's done. We ran it on syndication on USA for 20 years, and who wants to see this? And now all of a sudden it's like it's back and you can stream it again. But yeah, that's a whole different medium of entertainment. I'm just surprised they didn't get pipe hitting lawyers to settle all that. But there's just too much money on the table. People are going to fight over that.
Well, especially like the music licensing fees are crazy now because, people don't make money off of albums anymore, so it's just all licensing stuff. So.
Yeah, if you can get it on a TV show for, what was Adam Carolla talking about? He wanted to license some blues song for his Road Hard movie. And they're like, yeah, I'll give this guy $10,000, whatever. They called him as he wanted $800,000. Like, well, fuck you then. It's not going to be in the movie. No one's listened to that song in 20 years. Kiss my ass.
Yeah, I hear like any Michael Jackson song is like it's $1 million to license it for your movie.
Yeah.
Same with like Beatles. I think like Beatles, like I think the Beatles songs they don't want to license it, but there is a target fee. Like if you want to spend $5 million to get a Beatles song, you can put it in there.
Yeah. Yeah, there probably is stuff like that, but
and also it's also a weird thing because like the artists don't necessarily own their own music either, so it's just some dude profiting off of licensing all this stuff too. So
who was the lunatic who bought the Wu-Tang Clan album? The evil Skrillex or whatever. Not Skrillex.
Skrillex, I think.
Yeah, Skrillex is someone else. Sorry, dude. Yeah. But yeah, and he had to give
Martin Shkreli, that's his name.
Yeah, he had to give that up.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, yeah, because you're going to prison for insider or trading or I don't know, all kinds of FTC violations. But yeah. Anyway, Miami Vice.
Yeah, so they have a big shootout at the end because the porn baron's trying to get out, and there's a bunch of like underage. Let's forget that the starlet at the beginning, they basically find out she ran away, she's underage, and they killed. They suspect maybe she died of a drug overdose, but they implied that she was drowned by somebody, and then it's kind of implied that it could have been Arthur that did it, and even he's not sure. He's like, did I?
Yeah, that was a weird moment. Like, did I kill this girl? It's like, you think you remember. But then you realize what a mess his life is become. Yeah. Like, he might not know.
Because that's the thing. That's like the weird like lead out at the end where it's like, yeah, we got him out. Everything's fine. And then he went into the bathroom and hung himself.
Yeah.
It's like Jesus, and that was the only thing. That's where I was like wondering, like about if like was it just that like he couldn't go back and like that's why he hung himself, or did he kill the girl and that's why he hung himself?
No, he told Crockett. He goes, it's the adrenaline. Yeah. He goes, I want out, but I can never go back, and I know that I'm going to be miserable. I'm just going to. I think he even said I'm going to end up dead soon.
Yeah, because
I can't live without this life, but I hate this life. That's when Crockett was like all introspective about where am I going, and like you're going to be the sheriff in Watchmen, the TV series. But yeah, that was the thing. Like he wanted out, but he couldn't get out.
You're going to be the Marlboro man.
Yeah. Like I had a great television career. He had a great television career. Not so much movies, but that's not always your fault either. It's like, I need to work. Okay, we got an idea. It's terrible, but we got one. So yeah, that was Miami Vice, and and it only gets darker from here. I mean, it sometimes it's so bleak. It's like, oh, these guys would have killed themselves years ago. Like, there's no way someone can literally in the same episode, meet a character, fall in love, it's machine gunned to death, or it's like your best friend's betraying you every other episode. You don't really have friends, and you're mad at the crocodile or alligator or whatever. Which this was the first time that was introduced. That he plays that crocodile or alligator or whatever becomes a like almost regular character.
Yeah.
Even though he's chastised for not doing a good job of guarding the boat.
So now we turn to the Verhoeven effect, where we'll kind of draw conclusions between both shows and maybe give them more credit than they deserve or whatnot. Well, one thing I forgot to point out is like the way humor is implemented in these shows is very odd. Because it shouldn't be there, but because these are television shows, they want to make their characters likable. So that's why you have this humor just like put in the middle of a murder investigation where it really shouldn't be there. But
yeah, no one's just plucky and optimistic looking at a dead 16-year-old in real life. It's like, wow, what do you think of the shrimp? It's not. Miami Vice doesn't do that. Their humor is like it's always something else because it's like Tubbs can't find a decent place to live because
Yeah.
he's from New York. He's like, where the hell
Or,
do you live now?
oh, and just the alligator. That's funny.
Yeah, that's
Everything he
funny.
does. And the part when he was like chastising the FBI agents, like about how they they blew the tail and stuff like that. It's like, and just like he's like, "You sure you don't want to pull the circus in town the next time we're going out on a or something?"
We're gonna
like that.
rent. What are we gonna do? Rent broadcast time to tell the criminals what we're doing. And by the way, that was a real cool evasion scene
Yeah.
when the guy was driving that big Lincoln. It was Ed O'Neill, and he knew the FBI was behind him. Somehow he whipped around that corner and didn't lose one of those hubcaps. I don't know how that happened, but it was a really cool scene.
And also, a thing I think is interesting is that so immediately what I thought about this is like, oh, is this like some rip from the headlines? Is this like vaguely about Tracy Lords? But no, this preceded Tracy Lords.
Yeah, this was before. Tracy Lords was like 86, I think.
84.
84?
Same year.
Same year.
But like it isn't found out that she's underage till 86. So this is 2 years before that happens.
Right.
So I'll explain what Tracy Lords. Tracy Lords was a porn star who lied about her age. She had like a neighbor. She got pregnant and then got an abortion and then she was getting helped out by like a neighbor, and then the neighbor gave her birth certificate and like ID so she could get a job, and so she worked in the porn industry with a legitimate social security card and birth certificate.
Yeah, the only reason a bunch of people didn't go to prison for distributing underage porn was because it was proven that she lied and how she did it.
So she started porn when she was 16, did it for several years, and then somebody saw her on a magazine and called the FBI, and then all of a sudden, like, all these VHS tapes like need to be gathered up because that's child pornography.
Right.
And then Tracy Lords goes on to become an actor, and she's in music, so she got out of porn as far as I know.
Actually became a real actor, not a...
Yeah. I only know her really from Blade. That's like her biggest role I know of. But yeah, she's done a bunch of other stuff too.
Great movie, by the way.
Yeah. So I found that like kind of fascinating that like that paralleled and but like preceded it. So
yeah, it was there was a lot of
so there must have been like, if this is like something they're picking up a lot, there's a lot of underage people in porn, but we just don't know about it. It's like that must have been a thing that happened, and then Tracy Lords was just kind of like the biggest thing that happened for that stuff. So because that's even a conversation that the guy has, the porn baron guy has at the table, is like joking about like, oh no, we found out she's 16, and we had to go destroy all the videos.
Yep. Yeah, that was well, this was when porn was still seen as something, like, I mean, it still is something seedy, and there's a lot of criminal stuff in it. Yeah. But it was almost like criminal to do it. Like you had to go to places like Florida and shoot porn, or California, and you're kind of doing it in seedy. There were porn stars, but they didn't have any mainstream crossover. It's just a bunch of truck drivers knew who all these people were, or whoever was really into porn at that time. Yeah. So it was very much a seedy criminal thing. It still is, but not nearly what it was. Now everyone's streaming. So
yeah,
literally.
And then the idea, or the extra thing I had for NCIS New Orleans is, I'm not sure if the show is stating this, but this is just something I'm picking up on, is that New Orleans is so unique that the only way it can be unique is to be surrounded by poverty and violence. Yeah. Which I think vaguely that's something they're getting at, but that's just what I've noticed about just New Orleans productions in general. Is that's always the thing. It's like, look at the soul of the city. It's so remarkable. No place, other places else is like this. It's like, yeah, but why there's so much poverty and violence? It's like, well, that's the engine that makes the magic happen.
Where do you think blues comes from? No, one of the things I had on here, it was just like a question you would almost ask is was like, is New Orleans a real place? Does it really exist? It's like, because we've got some place where there's this, most of the East Coast was settled by the Dutch and the English, so it's kind of got that cultural heritage to it. Miami, Florida was settled by the Spanish to a certain extent, and it was kind of close to that. But like New Orleans is like, that's a French place. I mean, they still have like they still operate under Napoleonic type codes and stuff down there, just as a tradition. But it's like that's the only French place in America, because the closest you get to that, something like that, is like Montreal in Canada. But they actually speak French in parts of Canada. Yeah. It's down in America, maybe some people do. They have Creole or they have their own dialect, but nobody's like, that's not mainstream. They're not shooting TV shows in that language. So it's like, yeah, I kind of wonder, like, what is it a real place? Sometimes you see that show and it's like, oh, there's all this cool culture and stuff. If everyone stops shooting each other, it might be a nice, cool place. It's awful hot, but they have bars down there that have been open since it never closed since like the 1800s. Like the first time they closed was like Katrina. That's because they were underwater. There's bars down there you can drink 24 hours a day. They never close. Never. No, nothing like that. So it's a unique place, but yeah, it makes you wonder, like, is this a real place or is this an imagination place?
And then I don't have anything like extra special for the Mentalist. I kind of gave that away with the vague sense of apocalypse in the background. I'm not sure if that's what the show's getting at, but that was just something I was reading into.
Well, when we discuss our movie on our other podcast, American Greed Factory, we'll talk a little more about the Napa wine country and all the interesting stuff that went on to create the California we all love and know today. But yeah.
So yeah, this has been the Verhoeven effect.
Yeah, I did all my kind of deep, weird analysis like live in the show, so I don't really have a lot to encapsulate because I just kind of did it all as we went along. But yeah, it's there are definitely 3 shows that you can find stuff in.
You can find us, well, right now you can get us on Spotify. If you go to anchor.fm/Verhoeven effect, you can go to our page. You can do listener support where if you want to hear more from us, you can. There is a 99-cent, $4.99, and $9.99 tier. I don't know if I want to call them tiers because you don't get anything extra for any of them. It's just listener support. So if you'd like to hear more from this, support us and we will make more of it.
And if you
more and faster.
And if you want something extra, I will gladly stare at you like kind of a generic big brother in a screen, for an hour. I won't really do that. Don't ask me. I'm just kidding.
And also, you can get to the same page if you go to www.verhoeveneffect.com, and it'll link you to the same page. If you don't know how to spell Verhoeven, the way I remember it is you go Verho, Verho, and then even.
That's Verho, even.
So I never forget how to spell it. So that's verhoeveneffect.com. So yeah, that'll be it for this episode. I am Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America, till I have a catchphrase for the show.
All right.
Let me take it down.
Okay, stop recording. Let me send you a file.